Good evening, OGs. Welcome, mods. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I can see you guys are very excited to have Steven Keogh back on the show, a former Scotland Yard detective inspector, weighing in on the Summer Wales case tonight. How exciting is that to tell us how would this case be investigated there? So, welcome to the show.
Hi, hello everyone.
Oh,
Good to
they're
be
so
back.
excited. Right. Yeah. Good to be back. It's good to have you back. Again, thank you, mods. I hope everyone can hear me now as well. I heard some of you can't hear me very well. I hope you can hear me now. The mic is all turned up. And I hope you enjoy the show tonight. Okay. So where shall we start? Okay. Let's start with, you looked at the Summer Wales case, and what are your initial thoughts about it?
Okay, so I've kind of looked at it from what would we do from that perspective and from the beginning. Obviously, we're 5 months down the line now, so things would have moved on. But I'll talk about if we were to come in straight away, called onto it straight away. So I think it might have been one of your coffee times. I spoke about hypotheses, and if anyone's seen my channel, I've got a video on it there. So I think that's a good starting point for our discussions. When we're starting out in investigations, especially on cases where we don't have a lot of information, we create hypotheses, and essentially what they are, it's what could have happened. We're making scenarios. We're establishing scenarios that are likely to have happened, and when you do that, it helps you identify lines of inquiry. So if especially in cases like this where it's like, well, what has happened? If you create the scenarios, it then leads on to lines of inquiry. So I've looked at this case, and to be honest, they're obvious. They're common sense. I'm not going to come out with anything that anyone else hasn't thought of. But essentially, so I've written it down on my computer here, so I don't get it wrong. So I've come up with 3 hypotheses. Although the third is split into 2. So the first one would be that she walked off from the house and has had some sort of accident,
Yes.
which is obviously that's something they're looking at because of the searches that have gone on. The second one is then that something has happened within the house. She's come to harm within the house. Then the third one is she was taken from the house, and I've split this into 2. So one is that she was taken by someone known to the family, and the other is that she was taken by a stranger.
Yes.
So it's 4, but essentially it's 3. So she's walked off, had an accident, something's happened within the house, or she's been taken away from the house. So if we use those as a starting point, we can then identify lines of inquiry that are going to help us prove or disprove these hypotheses. And then what happens is, as we go along on the investigation, one of those may become more relevant. We may turn up some information, particularly if we're talking about people that are known. We may come across someone who stands out, for instance, and that may change where we go. But certainly as a starting point, that's where I would be looking at the very, very beginning of this investigation.
Yes. Yeah, I should have probably mentioned I actually ran a poll with some of the 4 top hypotheses that are around on the internet. So like Summer was abducted by a stranger. That's 19% voted for that one. Summer was rescued by someone, because they were very involved in the church and all that. So like maybe someone saw how she was living conditions. So rescued, I put it like this, rescued, because it means taken. So something happened in the house. That's 54% of the votes. And Summer walked into the woods or out of the house alone. That's 5% of the votes.
Yeah.
So just ask the audience just to see also what they think. So it's interesting you mentioned those as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're obvious ones, aren't they? And when you've got when you haven't got much information, you have to have those broad hypotheses. And then, I mean, unless something really, really random has happened, whatever actually has happened will come under one of those headings. And if you then follow the inquiries from there, then you're not going to miss any evidence. So yeah, I mean, it's obvious stuff I'm talking about. But yeah.
Right. What about a theory like this? There is this going around as well, that she was like sold by her family, especially because the parents were, addicted to drugs and things like that. So is that a possibility?
Yeah, and that would come under she was taken by someone known to the family. So that covers a whole raft of things. It could be that, I mean, I'm talking hypothetically. I'm not accusing the parents anything here, but it could be that the parents had arranged that. They knew that someone was coming to take them, or someone came without the parents' knowledge. Or it happens, doesn't it? We know that parents that are involved in certain groups and circles do pass children on. As horrible as that is, it's a reality in life.
Yes.
So all these things are possible. I saw a news report today of the local sheriff saying everything was on the table, and it has to be at this stage. You can't write anything off. It could literally be anything at this stage. I mean, I've got very limited information, the same as everybody. It doesn't seem like there's an awful lot coming out. So you have to, at this stage, in the UK, we always say police are keeping an open mind. And you have to, because literally anything could have happened, I think.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. I mean, I'm loving all the insight. I mean, feel free to talk. How would you now go? So those that you brought up, the 3 and the 1 split in 2, the hypotheses. So which direction would you go in? And if you had another team, because there's then sort of 4 theories, in which direction would you go?
Yeah, well, all of them. You do all at the same time.
But as a team, right?
It's
not like you by yourself doing one.
No,
It's as a team,
So at Scotland Yard, a murder team would consist of around 25 detectives.
Okay.
And certainly on a case like this, there would be others come in as well, because of the type of case it is. So you could have 50, you could have 100 detectives, and so all of these lines of inquiry will be running at the same time. And until one becomes more prominent, you can't have one over another with this limited information. So maybe if we went through those one at a time, we can look at how you would go about proving or disproving them.
That would be great. Okay, so start from the top.
Start from the top.
Let's go through it.
Yeah. So she's walked out and she's had an accident. So if we were there first, one of the first things we were doing, bear in mind the terrain and it's very wild out there, isn't it?
Yes.
So we would be looking at getting a helicopter or a drone in the air with thermal imaging. You can cover obviously a huge area doing that, as opposed to when you're on foot. So that would be one of the first things we'd do. And certainly at an early stage, that's going to be important. Obviously, if the worst was to have happened, she's had an accident, it's really important you get there as soon as possible. So that would be going on in the background. Then we would be looking at getting dogs out, police dogs that follow scent. They would be the first ones to go. And from what I've seen, it sounds like that's what they've done. I mean, it's I'm not saying anything that is unknown. This is like these are strategies used by police forces all around the world. So they would be doing this.
The one question that some people had was that they were their dogs on the property at the same time as those dogs were brought in. Is that normal? Because there was a dog with puppies. There were like 20 dogs on the property when they brought the canine dogs in. Is that fine? Is that normal?
Yeah, it's fine, because they're trained to smell human scent, so the other dogs shouldn't interfere with that.
There's not even a distraction for the other dogs, right? They're focused.
Yeah, no,
they know what they're looking for.
Yeah, no, it won't. And I'm assuming those dogs would be on the property and contained within the property, and the dogs would be going off away from the property anyway. I mean, it must have been difficult there, because it's the terrain, the trees, it's just open. Like, I mean, it must have been a very, very hard job at first trying to do that. And that's why a helicopter becomes handy, because you can cover a huge area, and those thermal cameras would pick her up if she was there.
Yes. Okay. I'm actually not too sure myself. I've just started covering the case. Does anyone know if they actually did use the thermal imaging? Did they do that at all? I know there's been drone footage, but did they use the thermal imagery stuff? That would be interesting to know. Okay, so you said the thermal imaging and then dogs, and then?
Yeah. And then, so that's the initial trying to get a quick win. And obviously that didn't happen. So then you'd be looking at a logical sectioning off of the area. So you have a big map so you've got a house smack bang in the middle, a big area that you can section off. So what you don't want to do is have people stumbling around, missing bits, searching bits twice. So you would have it would all be sectioned off and numbered, and you would look at the obvious ones. She's a 5-year-old girl. She's not going to be. So you'd start from the house and work out. she's not going to go far, is she? Let's be honest. A 5-year-old girl. I heard that she may be barefoot. I don't think she's going to go very far. So you'd start with a house working out, and you'd have specially trained officers that we would get in doing that. Obviously, this would, at the very beginning, you're looking for a live young child. But as this has gone on and on and on, we sort of go beyond that, sadly. So as the searches are carrying on, when you get in 2 days, 3, 4 days, and then you're weeks in, sadly, then what you're looking for is a dead body. And that's when we would bring in, certainly, I think you call them cadaver dogs in the States. We call them human remains dogs. So they would be another way of trying to cover a large area quickly.
Okay. Just making sure. They said helicopters. They had helicopters there straight away.
Right.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. So that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so we've got the thermal imaging, the dog section of the house.
Yeah. So not section off the house, sectioning off sort of the surrounding areas.
Oh yeah.
You can imagine it in grids. So supposing you had about a mile square, you could turn that into 12 grids, and then you say, right, well, we're going to do this one first. You would do the common sense thing of working out from the house.
Yes.
And then again, so keeping everything on the table. I'm not from America, so I don't know how likely this is. But there's bears in the area. I don't know whether there's any incidents where bears could attack. There were snakes, there were coyotes. So could she have come to something there? Funny, in my book, I write about there's a famous case in Australia where this was a baby, but a baby was taken by dingoes, wild dogs in Australia, and the parents were actually prosecuted for murder, and they did that on the basis of some blood pattern analysis work, which was wrong, and it was they got convicted of her murder, and it was years later that actually proved that the baby was taken by dingoes. So it's not unprecedented for children to be taken away. Although obviously Summer's 5, she's bigger than So there's not really an awful lot more in relation to this hypothesis, other than it's a big search that needs, and you try and utilize whatever methods you can to make it easier for you. So the helicopters, the dogs, the sectioning off. So and that's obviously what they're doing, and that is going to take a long time in this kind of area, and you have to do it properly, because what you can't do is then go and do it again. So you have to do it right first time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Lone Wolf Spirit, for your $5 super sticker. You're saying, I'm surprised that you haven't talked about why Candace's first 2 children were taken by CPS. The boy was beat with a baseball bat and has brain damage. Well, I'm only getting started. I'm 2 days in. I'll get to that because it's all very interesting. Of course, it's sort of looking at a bit of track record, right? Which I'm sure you would consider.
So that will come into my hypotheses later on. We'll talk about things like that.
Yes. Okay, great. So I'll just keep on writing it down and going over thermal imaging, dogs, sectioning off the area, and then considering bears, snakes, or other animals.
I mean, if we're keeping everything on the table, that's an option, isn't it? Or she could have fallen down. Obviously, it's a steep area, isn't it? I saw your drone footage that you were playing earlier. And it's really steep, isn't it, from where they are down to the road? If she was fallen or something.
Yes. Okay. They've got 2 main. I'm just looking at bears in the area. I'm like, Tennessee has 2 main black bear populations. Okay. Bears, very likely. Wow. All right. And especially they're in the woods there, kind of. So I understand. Yeah. Okay. And then.
So then we can move on to these are where the proper detective work is going to happen now. This is moving on to scenario 2, that something's happened within the house.
Yes.
So if we can break it off into sections. So if we first off, we talk about the people that were in the house and potential witnesses. So we've got mum, the brothers, and Nan, or grandmother. So first off, they're witnesses or potential witnesses, so they would all need to be spoken to.
Yes.
taken away, and it would be done the way we would do it. They would all be done on video. So they would go to a specific, in a police station, a specific room that's been set up to interview witnesses. The children would be interviewed by specially trained officers who would have the experience of being able to get information out of children, because even though they're young, I think they probably hold some quite important information, and not just about what's gone on, but the background as well. And that's something they'll be talking about. So that would be really, really important, getting the information from them. I've heard, so for instance, one of the news reports, there was a neighbor said she heard some screaming and a car door slam. I've not heard anything that the family have said anything about screaming. It's one of the things that jumped out at me is like, well, if she's been taken away and she's screaming, that would have been mentioned, wouldn't it, by mum, nan, brothers? Someone would have heard it. So
Yes.
that's one thing that jumped out at me. So then we're looking at the house itself. So if something's gone on in there, we're looking at forensics. Now, forensics is a funny thing when you're talking about her house. So essentially what you're going to be looking for is blood, because you can imagine her DNA is going to be everywhere. She lives there.
Yes.
So you'll be looking at blood, and you'll be looking for signs that there was some sort of cleanup. So you'll use something like luminol to highlight areas and see whether there is any blood that's been cleaned up. That would be quite important.
Yes.
And also you'll be looking for her. So if something has happened to her in the house, she could still be there. So it would need to be absolutely searched from top to bottom to make sure there are no. And looking at the property as well, there could be. You were talking about a bus earlier, and there's cars, and you've got the where the nan lives. I mean,
Yes.
all of that would need to be searched to make sure she isn't still on the property.
Yes.
So we had a case in the United Kingdom where this exact scenario happened, and sadly she was in the loft, so the crawl space above the house. So that is definitely. I'm assuming all this stuff has gone on. It must have gone on.
Yeah, so I'm just putting this up because I am still looking into this case myself. That statement about Candace was not true. The baseball thing happened with adoptive parents. Okay. All right. And thank you, Angela Bloom, for your $4.99 super sticker. I appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah. So the whole house would need to be searched. And then you're looking at, so for instance, phones, computers, laptops. All of that would be taken out, and you would look to see what is the history on these. Is there any evidence of abuse, child porn, whatever is on that phone that would indicate that those parents may have some sort of reason, or they're inclined to use violence or that sort of stuff. So that would be a priority, I think. Getting those out and getting their phones and computers looked at.
And just from the little bit I know, I don't think the brothers were interviewed. That's just from what I'm gathering, because they were picked up by Child Protective Services, and there's a gag order, so they can't speak. They can't be asked questions. I don't know if that's just for the media and the public, or if obviously I would assume if there is a gag order.
That's that they can't talk about the reasons why the children were taken, I think.
Ah, okay. But do you think that behind, what we see, that the children are being interviewed?
They must have done. I would hope they would, because I know the children, but they would still know what's going on and hear and see things.
Yes, yes.
I'm sure they would have spoken to the children. You would hope so. Anyway.
Yes, yeah, we would hope so. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Dara says, I'm listening, but I have to get some work done. Thank you for listening and for tuning in tonight or today, wherever you are. Okay. So reference to the poll, how about adding do not know? I wish I could add another 4 or 5 options. Answer what you can, or answer in the chat if you don't like what's on the poll there. Go for it. Okay. So we're on scenario 2 still. Yes.
One of the things that's jumped out at me as well. So in the UK, we have a system of introducing a detective to the family, and it's known as family liaison. And so that officer is a family liaison officer. They're specially trained.
Yes.
And their job is twofold, really. One is to be the conduit between the investigation team and the family. So there's going to be lots going on, processes that the family are going to have to be introduced to. They're going to be they're going to have to know what the investigation team are doing, and that's part of their role. But they're also investigators, so they will go into the family and they're trying to get information from them, look at the family, ask them questions, see how they're answering those questions, get a feel for them, and especially on a case like this. And if, as and when the press get involved, those family liaison officers are really quite important. They will always be with them. They'll always be there, so they're not left on their own to the press. And I found it quite odd how the press just seemed to be able to get hold of the family and ask them questions. And there doesn't seem to be any shielding of them. And that would be something that would happen here. They wouldn't just be left to their own devices. Any interviews with press would have to be arranged through the police, and the police would then sort of facilitate that. Obviously, if the family went off on their own and did that, you couldn't stop them. But most families like having that sort of that protection. And I found that a bit. It wouldn't happen here. I found that quite unusual that the family, like I've seen people wandering around their houses, their house.
Yeah.
And yeah, that strikes me as a bit odd. And I don't know whether family liaison is a thing in the States. To be honest, I don't know whether that is.
I actually don't know either. Lieutenant Peter Pronzo, you're in the house. Is that a thing? Family liaison? Let us know. Because they definitely have been talking to YouTubers, to the media, and sometimes they're not quite in the right state of mind either to be talking. To the media.
And they're not the brightest of people either, are they? So it's like they've been thrown to the wolves a bit. And
yes,
and obviously people are going to start. It is one of my hypotheses, and it plays a big part in it. The parents are involved. People are going to jump on that fact.
Yes.
And to me, it feels like they've been left on their own a bit, and it doesn't quite sit right with me. Like I say, it wouldn't happen here.
Yes, I'm trying to see if there's an answer to that. Is there a family liaison type of thing in the US? I mean, I don't know about that in South Africa either, from where I'm from. But and here in the Netherlands, there's hardly any crime. Honestly. So I don't know, but I would love to know if there is. So if you guys know the answer to that, let us know. That's why the UK is more successful than the US. Good statement there. I don't think that's a thing in the US. You need to get an attorney. Yes. Right. A lot of attorney time. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So we had quite a famous case here where there was a young lad was killed in a racial attack named Stephen Lawrence. And there was a big inquiry because the Metropolitan Police at the time, Scotland Yard, didn't handle it very well. And there was a huge inquiry into how we investigated that murder. And one of the things that came out of it was the importance of family liaison. And it forms a really important part of our investigations. And particularly in a case like this, where the suspect could be within the family, you need someone in there with them who's with them all the time and can get a feel for them. And
yes.
I don't know whether it's a tactic. I don't know how it's the TBI, isn't it? Tennessee Bureau of Investigations. I don't know whether it's a tactic of theirs.
Yes. Okay, you froze up for a second there. Okay, you froze up for 1 second there, but I caught the end of that sentence there. They just say it's not a thing in the US.
What I'm saying is that I don't know whether it's a tactic. I don't know whether they've said, right, well, we'll let them go out and talk, and they might say something and catch themselves out. I don't know whether that might well be what's happening.
Oh my word! Imagine that. Exactly. Just let them talk to whoever they want. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
really amazing.
Because they're not the brightest of people, are they? So if they're lying, they will catch themselves out at some point, won't they? They'll say something. They'll trip themselves up.
Yes. Okay, so we are still on scenario 2.
Yeah.
And how long, when you say a family liaison is there all the time, like in the UK, like what do you mean by all the time? Like how many hours in a day or in a month or in a week?
So they'll be there an awful lot, certainly in the initial stages. And if there's any, so they'll be there. They won't be with them 24/7, but they'll be with them for many hours in a day. And if there is anything specific happening, like some press want to speak to them, or they would definitely be there for them. So where you see the reporters going up and sort of kind of sticking a microphone under their noses and asking them questions, in the UK, that family liaison officer would be there with them, and if they didn't like the line of questioning or they weren't happy with it, then they would take them away.
Oh, okay. Wow, hectic. Okay, and so that did not happen. I don't think there's no family liaison there. So scenario 2, how do we wrap
scenario
that one
2
up?
So if we're talking about scenario 2, what we're essentially saying is it's one or other of the parents, aren't we, or grandmother? I mean, we can't rule out grandmother, but it's someone within that household. So what would be really important is then looking at them and their background and their history. And one of the things that's jumping out, and again, I'm not accusing the parents here. I'm just talking. I'm talking generally. Is there's a history of violence on both sides, domestic violence. That's a real red flag. And there's even some suggestion that the dad has sexually assaulted his sister when he was younger. Again, a huge red flag. So those are those kind of things you would be looking at, and they would form part of your. They must be making a consideration as whether they arrest the parents. That must have been a consideration, and it's almost a tactical thing, because once you arrest someone, you start a process that makes you have less control. Then they've suddenly got a lawyer, they've got rights that make it harder to get information from them. So it's a balancing act between do we let them run and try and get information from them, or do we arrest them? And if you get that wrong, it can have repercussions later on. So in the UK, for instance, if we've got a family liaison officer with the family, and we suspect they may have been involved, if we don't arrest, everything that they then tell the family liaison officer, we could end up not being able to use at court, because a defense lawyer would come in and say, well, we call it cautioned. So when you arrest someone and you read them their rights, we call it cautioned. What the defense will say is everything they said that should have been under caution. And what you've done is you've made a decision not to arrest in order to get information from them, and that shouldn't have happened. That was a tactic, and you shouldn't have been allowed to do that. So the decision of whether to arrest or not is really key, certainly for us. And we have to get that right. And if we get it wrong, we could end up losing lots of our evidence because we've been seen to abuse the system. Again, I'm not American, so I don't know whether the rules are exactly the same out there, but I would imagine that is certainly conversations that they've had amongst investigators. Do we arrest the family? Yes or no? And they would have to record their rationale for why, or they clearly haven't yet. They would have to record their rationale for why they haven't arrested.
Yes. Okay. Some interesting answers rolling in here. And Lieutenant Peter Pranzer says drinking, drug use, rap sheet. Don Wells recently took a DWI. Yep. 2 weeks ago or so. Yep. Doesn't hurt to check. Exactly. Goodness.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So like I say, the red flags for me are the domestic violence and the child abuse. And there's little things that jump out. I mean, the fact she's had her hair shaved. That
yes,
it doesn't. I've got a young daughter. Doesn't look too dissimilar to Shannon and Summer. Sorry, and I can't see why I would shave her head. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't sit right. It doesn't sit right.
Yeah, and the photos that when they have a missing persons file and they pass around the photos. I mean, she didn't look like the photo they were first passing around.
No.
And only weeks later, then they're like, oh yeah, here's the updated photo. Like, why not show the accurate photo if you want your daughter to be found? I'm not implicating them either. I'm just saying maybe the most recent photo. Possibly, because it's more.
That's one of the things we do. So we would go into the family, and the fact this is one of the roles of the family liaison officer is that they would be saying, right, we need to get publicity. We need to circulate a photograph. What is the best photograph you've got that represents, in this case, Summer as she was when she was last seen? And that's a really important question, because if you're circulating a picture of what she used to look like, you're lessening your chances of recovering her, aren't you?
Yes, exactly. My goodness. We saw that with that Susie Lamplugh case there with you in the UK, when they passed around pictures of her with the darker hair, but she actually had the lighter hair and all that. I mean, most recent picture would be helpful.
It's things like that that could end up derailing your case, and especially when we can't assume anything in this case. Someone's either alive or she's dead.
Yeah.
If she's alive, every day you waste pushes her more towards that something's going to happen to her.
Yes.
So you can't be wasting time. So circulating a picture that doesn't look like her really doesn't help your case, does it?
Nope. Exactly. They say maybe shaved her head due to a lice problem, but I mean, wow, it's pretty drastic.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying they're guilty because of it, but if you've got your mind, investigative mind on, and you're looking for signs that are going to make you think, a pretty young girl that's got lovely long blonde hair, suddenly it's shaved off. You think, well, why is that?
Yes.
It would just be a question in mind. That was all.
Exactly. Yeah, we like all the questions. Okay, so we're still on scenario 2. So, and have you seen pictures of the staircase? It's very steep, leading down to the basement.
It's weird, isn't it? Like
weird.
It's like under a table.
Yeah, it's so
to
weird.
Crawl under the table to get in, and the house itself. I mean, it doesn't look like a family home, does it?
It really doesn't. Oh my word! I think that's why the kids were taken away. When we're assuming, we don't know exactly why, but they just found what Brian Enton said today was just like it's unsafe for children. It's just stuff everywhere, and wow. Goodness.
Her bedroom was weird as well, wasn't it? With the it looked like shelves, like metal shelving, and she was sleeping on a mattress on the floor.
Yes.
It's quite a sad life, really, isn't it? It made me quite sad looking at that.
Yeah, now the mattress is just outside against the door like that. So weird. Very strange. Very strange. Okay, so scenario 2.
So we're still on scenario 2. So we're looking at the family. So then you're looking at a lot of cases nowadays. Pivotal in it is phone evidence, and so what phone calls were they making? And what I would be wanting to do is look at their phone history over a certain amount of time. So if we were to pick a year, what is their usual phone usage over that year? And has it changed in any way in the time leading up to Summer's disappearance? So if there was suddenly a flurry of calls that day that were unusual, well, why was that? Who was that? Where were the calls made, etc.? That to me would be something else I'd be looking at, because people give themselves away on phones. You can imagine if you're and what they can't do is get that back. So that they will be making phone calls. Something's going on that day. Something's happening. There's suddenly a flurry of phone calls, and that evidence will never go away. And that'd be really interesting for me, is that was what was going on their phones. Yes,
exactly. And how long would it take to extract data like that? Does it take, how long does it take to get data from phones?
So that data we would get from a phone company. So in the UK, it's probably different in the States, but in the UK, it's just from the police to the phone company. We have to get authority from a senior police officer, and we have to justify why we want that data. But in this case, it's instantaneous. So we would do the application, send it into the phone company, and they would send us back the data straight away. That would then go to an intelligence analyst who would put it in a form, because when the information comes back from the phone company, it's gobbledygook. You couldn't make head nor tail of it. So they then put it into a format, probably on like an Excel spreadsheet. Very quickly, then we can populate that with, so who's that phone number? Once we identify that phone number, automatically throughout the whole of the data, that name, that person will be on it. And very quickly, you can you start to see patterns. You can see people's phone usage, and I say this in my book. It's probably my favorite evidence, because every single one of us nowadays is walking around with a phone in our pocket, and we're making calls constantly. We're connecting to the internet. We're doing searches, etc. Our life is on that phone, and if you're in a position unless you're very, very clever and you're very premeditated, if you commit a murder that you've not given an awful lot of thought about, you're probably going to give away yourself in some way on your phone.
Exactly. And would they wouldn't normally need the physical phones, or would they take that at
Would do
what
that too.
stage? Yeah.
Yeah. So when we talk about phone evidence, it's two separate things.
Yes.
It's your usage when you're making calls and you're connecting to the cell mast.
Yeah.
That's one thing, and then the other is what's on your phone, and that's really important because when I first started delving into phone evidence, it was literally phone calls, text messages. You might have then had picture messages. Now it's so much more. Now you've got WhatsApp. I mean, I'm an old fuddy-duddy, so I don't order all the things that people use, but Snapchat and iMessage and all these sort of things. And you can't get them from the phone companies. So, for instance, there's two ways that your phone can connect to the internet. It's either through Wi-Fi or through a phone mast. We call it GPRS, but it's using your data on your phone. And for instance, if you was to send a WhatsApp message to somebody, if it was on a Wi-Fi, we would never know. There would be no trace of it other than on the phone. If you did it through a cell site, they would show a connection, but it could be anything. All you know is they connected to that cell site. They could have been making a phone call over the internet. They could have been just browsing the internet. They could have been on Facebook. They could have been doing anything. You just do not know. So that's why you need the phone. And once you've got the phone, then you can look at what is it they're doing. So, for instance, WhatsApp is encrypted, so no one would ever know what is on a WhatsApp unless you get the actual phone. So then once you've got the phone, then opens up a whole world of potential evidence. So you've got all your communications around WhatsApp and the like. You've got their internet search history. What have they been searching? What photographs have they got? What videos have they got? We all know our life is on our phone. And again, once you get into that phone, it will open up a whole new world for the investigators.
Yes, and here they say they probably have evidence from the phones, but just not info released to the public. I mean, of course, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's gonna be loads that they know that they're not going to release it, are they?
Yes. No. What percentage would you say the public knows? Usually in a case that does hit the media, what percentage does the public know versus what they actually know?
So certainly from Scotland Yard, they will only know what we tell them, and whatever we release is very, very tactical.
Yes.
So one of the things is media that I was going to talk about. So we use the media for our own purposes in terms of investigations. And so I'm probably jumping around a bit here, so it's difficult to keep everything. But
it's fine. Yeah.
Media appeals.
Yeah.
So in a case like this, there's three things that you want to do with the media. So the first would be getting witnesses and information. So somebody who's, like, for instance, the red truck, someone who saw the red truck, somebody who has information potentially about the family, or the person who heard the screaming, or whoever can add some information to the investigation. That's the first thing you're doing. You're asking for people to come forward with information. Yeah. Then you're appealing to somebody, if it's outside of the family or anywhere really, somebody somewhere generally knows if there's a murder, someone other than the murderer knows about it. It could be their partner, a friend, a fellow gang member, or someone he knows. Somebody knows that person committed the murder. So you'd be directly appealing to them. Did your husband come home and did his clothes have blood on, that sort of stuff? So you'd be directly appealing to people that know the killer, playing on their conscience. You need to come forward. We need to get hold of someone now. We need to save her life, or we need to find the person that killed her. You need to help us do that. So you'll be doing that. And thirdly, a direct appeal to the perpetrators or perpetrator.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly in a case where if she's still alive. you need to return us. Well, you direct appeals to that person. It may not work. It probably won't work, but you can't assume that it won't work. So those for us, those are three things that we'd be using the media for: getting information, appealing to people that know the killer, and appealing to the kid or kidnapper themselves. And what we would do is we would use a family for that, because someone like me going on and appealing is going to have far less impact than the family going in and seeing the direct what is happening to that family, how are they suffering, and you're appealing to people's consciences then. And if you've got the family, that really helps with that.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense. So still, because I'm an internet sleuth, with the public, the media, and YouTubers know what, like, I would say it's like 20%. Some people saying half of the information. I would guess we only know 20% of most of these very public cases, like when
Very
doing Gabby
little, I'd
Petito
say.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it even 20?
I
Is it 20?
mean, I can't put a figure on it, but I would say it's less than that, because in a case like this, when I'm talking about evidence, and evidence
Yes.
comes in so many shapes and forms. So what was in that house, we don't know.
Mhm.
So when we go on to scenario 3, again, the forensics within the house are going to be important. One of the
Yes.
things I didn't mention, so when you have a missing persons case, so what they would be needing to do is get DNA of someone. And so where that would generally come from is a toothbrush. It's normally the best, it's theirs, it's individual to them, and it's going to have DNA on it. So we would take the toothbrush, that would go to a lab, and we'd then be able to raise a DNA profile for Summer, so that if the worst was to happen, if we can identify, for instance, blood.
Yes.
I'm not going to go into all the details, but if there's other bits that could be found where DNA is important, obviously she's not going to have DNA on some in database. She's a child, so that would be important for the investigation.
Yes. Lieutenant Peter Barnes also says 10%. 10%. The public and us, we know 10%, guys. But imagine knowing all the facts. It would be so amazing. I wish I was a detective. I would love to know all.
Such a good job, honestly. It is,
right?
Anybody wants to be a murder detective, go for it, because it's brilliant. I loved it.
Oh my goodness. I'm sure. And now you've been retired for how long? Not retired, former, but you know what I mean. For how many days now?
It must be about 3 weeks. Is it?
Yeah.
3 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh,
When you were first here, it was like 2 days. 3 weeks in, 10%. Okay. So we looked at scenario 1 and scenario 2. Are we still on scenario 2?
So scenario 2 again. So a lot of these hypotheses overlap.
Yeah.
So if something happened to her within the house, they would need to dispose of a body, and all the work that's going on for hypothesis 1 would cover where would, if the worst had happened and someone has been killed, where would her body be? And a lot of the work on 1 would be covered where we're looking for a body on 2. So they do overlap.
Yes. They say, great guest, and they say, give me the scoop. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Give us the scoop. All those who know out there, give us the scoop. Okay, so scenario 1, scenario 2. I don't know. You're the expert. So is there anything more with scenario 2, even though it's going to overlap with some of the others?
So then we're looking at, so if she's not there in the house, she has to have been moved. And then you're looking at their vehicles. So then we would seize the vehicle. And again, you finding Summer's DNA in their family car is neither here nor there. Finding her blood in the car would be completely different. So that would be something that they would be looking at. So again, luminol or any indication of blood within a vehicle. So seizing the family cars would be quite important.
Yes. They say Steven Keogh, always an interesting guest.
Thank you.
Sorry for distracting you there. And so the fact that we only hear 10%, it can still help, says a lot. Right? That's awesome. Okay. And hello, Tyler. Such a wild case. Exactly. Such a wild case. Okay. So next, what are we on next? I'm just, soaking all this in and making notes.
Yeah. So if I probably we could leave two. We could leave two there and go on to three.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
So this
Flipping
is
the page.
this is where it really, detective work really does kick in, because if she's killed within the house, it makes things a lot simpler. If she's been taken, that's where it gets really complicated, because then we're looking at, well, who's taken her. So it has to be one of two things. It has to be family, people that the family know, or people the family don't know. Now there would be a bit of overlap with these, but there'll be strategies in how we deal with them. So first off, one of the things as well that would be important is CCTV. Now I don't know this area, and it looks quite rural, but cameras in people's houses, traffic cameras, shops, business premises, all of those cameras. For me, in a case like this, we would be probably looking at around probably about a mile at least in either direction. You'd be getting every single camera, because you don't know what's happened, and you don't know what you may find, and that would be by literally police officers on foot, walking those areas, walking those routes, looking for cameras, calling at the premises, calling at the house, wherever it is, and then retrieving that footage, and that will generate hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage, all of which will need to be viewed in real time. So that's a really big time-consuming element of any murder investigation, but it's really, really important, because witnesses get things wrong. Witnesses, the best witness in the world is never going to be able to tell you everything. But if you get good CCTV footage, they say the camera doesn't lie. Well, obviously sometimes it might get things wrong, but if you can get a suspect, a vehicle, some activity on CCTV, it really can change a case.
Okay, and I mean, here they're saying about none of those in the area. I'm assuming there's maybe trail cams, but I mean, in that area there must be so few cameras. Imagine.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the challenges that the investigators have got.
Yes. And do you think at this point, based on scenario 3, that something happened to her in the house, that, let's say, if that is actually in the end what happened, that of course they would know this by now and no arrests have been made because they're still investigating?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine imagine if scenario 2 could be proved, it would probably be done by something like blood. And if the team had found blood, then that they would have arrested the family.
Okay, so it's not so likely that at this point, but having looked at their phones and their phone records, interviewing them, being at the house, they haven't arrested the parents. So,
and it's been a long time, isn't it? So you would think if there is evidence that the family have directly, so there's different ways they can be involved. So scenario 2 is them hurting her in the house, essentially.
Yes.
And if there was evidence of that, then they would have been arrested by now.
Exactly. So that's very unlikely. Okay, at this point, I know we're just hypothesizing. Okay, Scotland Yard and a South African living in the Netherlands, hypothesizing on Summer World.
We all do it, don't we? We all,
yeah.
And true crimers, more than anyone, I imagine, probably do it. But it works, doesn't it? So you have to think of what could have happened, and then that leads on to, well, how can you prove or disprove that?
Exactly. Yeah, because some people are obviously still just. I mean, the parents, as you say, there's some red flags and things. But at this point, 156 days later, no arrests have been made for them. It's becoming less likely that they did something to her in the house, for instance, right?
Yeah, I'd say that.
Okay, so we've done scenario 1, 2, and 3.
So
3. We're still busy with 3. Yeah, 3.
Yeah. So this is where strategy really does come into play. So if we take each separate one, so we've got the family and strangers. So again, right? So phones. I'll always go on about phones. I love phone evidence. Who has been in contact with that family? And I would go quite wide. I would go over the last maybe even 6 months. Depends on how much they use their phones. But who is it they're in contact with? Who is their circle of friends? Who is it that they associate with? And this is quite important. Now, there's an underlying, there's an undertone here of sexual abuse, and there's been an allegation, I believe, by Don Wells's sister that he abused her as a child, starting at the age of 5 and finishing at the age of 12. Now, it's a fact that people who are into like you can call them pedophiles or sex offenders or whatever you want to call them, they tend to gravitate. They tend to end up with that same circle of friends are into those same sort of things. So what I would be doing if it was my case, every single person that knows them would become we would call it a nominal. So they would have a file on them, and we would look at their phone records, their history, their offending history, if we could, their social media and everything. So what you're doing is the people that are closest to them, you're building up a picture of anybody that could be likely to fit a criteria of a sex offender, essentially, or a paedophile, or someone who uses violence or something like that. So that it would be really, that's quite a time-consuming task, but it's really, really important that we know exactly who is in their life and what are their characteristics. Are they likely to be the sort of people that would kidnap a child or sexually assault a child? That would be really quite important.
Yes, and I mean, Don Well doesn't really want to talk about Candace's friends, who he actually said was like they're a little bit shady or dodgy or whatever word he used, and she cried and left after Dr. Phil brought up associations they may have had. Like,
yeah,
wow, yeah.
I mean, so, if I was to be put on the spot and was asked what scenario do I think is most likely, I think it's this one. I would say most murders are not stranger murders. Most murders, there's a connection between the victim and the suspect. Scenario 2 is looking unlikely, as you said, Gisela. There's no arrest been made of the family, and they've had enough time now to identify whether there's anything in that house that could indicate that she would come to harm there.
Yes.
So if the most likely scenario, although you have to leave them all on the table, you can't rule anything out, but this is probably the most likely scenario, I would say.
Yeah. It's the friends of the parents.
Friends. So friends. When I say, I wouldn't say friends. I would say people known to the family, because they might not be friends. They could be known in different ways, but certainly people known to the family. That would be how I would classify them.
Yes.
And right. So you had on the other day a behavior analyst from the FBI. So they can help with these next two scenarios, and they can come and they can help. So what we would do, we call it trace, interview, and eliminate. So we would set a certain criteria of potential offenders. So if she's been kidnapped by somebody, they would fit this criteria. So it could be you would look at things like history of offending, child porn, sexual assaults, and some sort of criteria that would raise them to in a likely suspect. And you would then you would have a list of people, and you would work your way through those people, each of them, and they would get investigated. So you'd be looking at everything around them, and you would what you're trying to do is you're trying to either eliminate them or implicate them as a suspect, and you would work through that list of people. And in a case like this, personally, I would have quite a low bar. I would have most people that are really associated with them on it, and I would want to work through them and say, right, can we eliminate them? Is it? And you would have to have an elimination criteria. It would have to be they were somewhere else at the time. Their car was there, and we can prove it. They were over there at the time, and you would work through them. And if any of those flagged up, you would go, right, we would have certain we can do certain things remotely. We can look at their phone billing. We can look at their car activity. We can look at their banks. We can look at their offending history. But some things you need to become more involved. So, like, for instance, if you want to search someone's house, you then have to have evidence or suspect them. If you have this criteria, you can raise them. So, for instance, we've got 20 people that are associated with them. One of them then has a history of sexual offences. That may then raise them to a point where, right, we're going to raise them to suspect. We're going to arrest them. That allows us then to search their house, looking for DNA of somewhere in their house, and it opens up a whole new world of powers.
Exactly. Now, in this scenario, if it was someone that was known to the family and Summer was allegedly in the basement, how would this known person take Summer away?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because the time window is really quite tight. I have to be careful I say this. I don't want to keep going back to the parents, but you would think whoever was coming to that house must have. How would they know if she's in the basement? You can't see from the outside, can you? And
nope.
that to me is another thing that makes me my investigative minds go, well, how would they know? It's such a tight window. What are the chances of someone just passing at that exact time? Well, one, they wouldn't know she was in the basement, would they? No. Unless she opened the door and came out, she wouldn't know. So again, all these things make you start to think, don't they?
I know. I wonder if she was even in the basement.
You can only go by what people are telling you, can't you?
Yes.
I mean, they could. Yeah, who knows?
My goodness.
Right. So we're working through them, and you would need a lot of people to do this, and I'm sure the TBI, between TBI and FBI, they'll have dozens and dozens of people doing this. But I would be looking at a very positive arrest strategy, as in, if there's any chance that a person could have taken Summer, they're getting arrested, and it would be fully justified. And even if it's not them, it's fine, because what you're doing is you're eliminating them. But my bar for arrest would be very low on this, I think.
Okay. And they say Summer's Amber Alert is still ongoing. What does that say to you?
Well, she's still missing. I don't know how these work in the States, but until she's found one way or the other, I'd imagine that will stay in place. I mean, I don't know for sure.
Yes. Here they say Summer left the basement. Interesting. Even if it was someone that was known to the family, the sort of hypothesizing earlier, just if it's someone that's known and they call her, if she knows them, she could walk to them. So that's where it's that blend of scenarios.
Does make more sense, doesn't it? Does make more sense.
Yeah. Like sitting in the woods, I don't know, and being like, come here, interesting.
Yeah. So, right. So also as well, so when we were talking about phone evidence earlier, there's a method that you can use, and it's called a cell dump. And in London, it's quite difficult because and any major city. But essentially what you can do is you can identify phone masts that are nearby. And I would imagine in an area like this, it wouldn't be that many. There'd probably only be a couple. And you could just download every phone that is connected to that cell mast, and what that would do is you'd have a lot of phone numbers and a lot of data, but you could capture any. So if, for instance, it's the neighbours, that doesn't really, it's neither here nor there. But if someone's travelled out of the area there, suddenly you've identified someone in the area that you might not necessarily know were there. So that is a technique that I would suggest they might be using.
Okay.
And then phones again. I'll keep going on about phones. Right. So if it's a friend of theirs, so their boys were on the internet, they were on YouTube. So I'm assuming they've got Wi-Fi. If any of their friends have ever been to their house and have connected to their Wi-Fi by their phone, every time they return to the house, their phone will automatically reconnect to the Wi-Fi. So you can then download from the router every phone that is connected to it. So that does catch people out because they don't know this. So they will turn up at a place they've been before. Their phone's saying hello to the Wi-Fi. It's recorded as a logged incident on the router. And if you download the router, you're suddenly going, well, actually, there was a phone that connected at 5:30 with this MAC address. Whose phone was it? So that's another technique that they could use if it's someone that's known to the family.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Oh my goodness. Just seeing here, they say, Stephen, I bet your mind is going overtime as your knowledge and work will be kicking in big time.
I noticed we've done an hour. I'm brushing over stuff, so I could literally talk about this for 8 hours. I literally could, because there's so much you can do and so much detail you could go into. But I'd probably bore the pants off of most people.
I highly doubt it with the true crimers.
It's just there's just so much you can do. So we haven't even got onto the people that they don't know yet, have we? We've been here for
right. We could do a part 2 if you want. If we want to do our we could go on a little more now. Or we could
go on now. Yeah, I'm happy to go on now. So if we then go on to, so I've skipped over stuff, and there would be more to do. So intelligence is a really important part of investigations. So at Scotland Yard, the murder investigation team would have a dedicated intelligence officer or more than one officer, and it would be their job to build up profiles of every known person that comes within the case. And so that would be that's a huge part of when we're talking about this now. These third and fourth, if you like, scenarios, getting a real history on people in order for you to be able to make a good decision on what you're going to do with them.
Yes. Okay.
And then we're getting into the realms of, so if it's people that they don't know, this is where it gets tricky, and this is where you can end up with an awful lot of people. So we use matrices. Is that what's the plural of matrix? Matrices. Is that it?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
What you would end up with, and this is where your behavioural analysts could become helpful, is you would have a scoring system. So most of these, you can't assume this, most of these offenders are generally men. And so you could literally have, I don't know how big this area is or how many people are in the area. Look quite small.
Yeah.
You could literally have everyone in the town, I think. You probably wouldn't, but you'd have like quite a large net. And you would have a scoring system. So you would look at their offending history, and if they use violence, that would get a certain score. If they were sex offenders, that would get more of a score. If they've ever been caught with child porn, that would get a score. Is their phone particularly in this area at the time? Is there any proof that they could have been near the property would get a high score? So you could literally have 500 people on this matrix. And by using this scoring system, suddenly people will come rise to the top, and you'll be like, right, okay, so we need to look at that person because they've scored high on the matrix. And it's a great way of filtering out an awful lot of people, and suddenly you'll be like, well, this person's of interest. And then you could potentially, if they reach a certain score, we'll arrest them. Again, that's another method. And that would be really important for the people in the area that don't know the family.
Exactly. Someone said that if it was someone unknown, the dogs would bark. But I mean, there were so many dogs. It was so wild. I mean, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, some dogs do, some dogs don't. But again, all these questions are things that the investigators would be asking themselves.
Right.
So the red truck there was mention of a red truck from one person. To me, I would be a bit careful of that because people get things wrong.
It was so detailed as well. My goodness,
that just didn't sit right with me. So I wouldn't be able to name a car, narrowing it down to 2 years.
Yeah,
98 to 2000. The detail around the ladder and the bucket, it just all didn't sit right. There's something. It just, I don't know.
Do you investigate that person? Who's that? Who gave those details? They should be investigated.
I mean, if it's true, that's brilliant. I mean, I wish I had more witnesses like that. That was a great spot.
That was extremely detailed for someone just spotting the truck. Wow. Exactly 2 years, like within 2 years, the buckets. Wow, goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I don't know.
So and then so we like things, for instance, I think there's a reward out. That would be something that we would do.
Yes.
We would offer a reward for information. It's sad that it would come to that, but unfortunately, as the world we live in, it might be might be what pushes someone to come forward when all the other things haven't worked.
Exactly. Here they say I'm super interested in different scorings, profiling, etc. systems. Right? That would be so fascinating.
It's a really good system, and you need to have something like that when you're talking. If you're getting into the hundreds of people, you have to have a way of separating the wheat from the chaff, if you like, and sorting out who's going to be your likely suspect. And the scoring system does work really well for that.
Yes. Here they say the parents have often referred to someone in the past tense, like she was, but yes, I've noticed that. But with them, as you say, they're not that sophisticated, right? They might just be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I was going to do a video on my channel around communication and liars.
Yes.
And one of the things you have to be really careful of is making a judgment on somebody on how they talk, how they act. If you don't have a baseline, if you don't know how they normally talk, how they normally react, how their body language normally is, you have to be really careful making a judgment on just looking at someone. So, for instance, if there are signs of people lying, but the signs for people lying could be so. For instance, one of the ones that I always used to catch people, I used to look at them, is quite often someone would get a little tick under their eye. There's always a nervous tick, and you'd see it, and you think, are they lying? But that's nerves, and just talking to a police officer could create nerves that give you a tick. Talking on camera, I mean, I get nervous coming on here, but imagine if you're that family and you're talking to a news report and you know it's going worldwide, you're going to be nervous, and there's going to be things that you do. Your body is going to act in ways that you can't help, and that doesn't mean you're lying. It could just mean you're nervous. So you have to be very careful about making judgments on what people are doing and how they're reacting, unless you know them really, really well, and you're factoring in the stress they're going to be under through just from being interviewed.
Yes, true. They say liars would be a great topic, so everyone will be excited to see that. Some of the mods are also linking your channel in between the chat. So thank you for doing that as well. If you want to go and subscribe over there, Grizzlies, that would be amazing. How many videos have you done?
Influx of subscribers whenever I come on here. It's brilliant. Because like 3 weeks ago, I had 3, and I think they were like my children.
Oh,
so
come on. Let's see how many videos have you got now? I mean, you've done so many videos in 2 weeks. It's amazing.
7.
Murder Academy.
7, I think.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay. Great stuff. Yeah. So if you guys haven't checked it out yet, if anyone's on here tonight and you haven't yet checked it out, let me just go to your about page. You can, it's a random side note. You can set your custom URL now, by the way, so that you can make it Murder Academy. I'll tell you that afterwards. Yeah.
Oh.
So I'm going to just paste this in here as well. There we go. Murder Academy. Okay. So we're doing, I don't know, like for me, this is like intense, man. I'm like, what? Scenario 1, 2, 3, and we're on 4. Is there anything, I don't know, I lose track because I'm just listening to it all.
Yeah, I've kind of lost track as well. But
yeah, I'm just
I would say is like, so that as I think I hinted at it earlier, a lot of these all sort of, you can investigate more than one by doing one line of inquiry. If I make sense. But the CCTV would be important for all of them. The phones would be important for all of them. Media appeals. So although there's 4 different things we're investigating, there's a lot of it is interlinked.
Yes. Okay, let's put your banner back up there. Goodness. I mean, there's so much to think about.
Yeah.
There's so many ways it could go. I mean, my word, I suppose that's what we all love about true crime, right? I mean, that's what you loved about your work as well, actually doing the detective work, all the different scenarios. And it must be so fulfilling when you actually solve the crime. Oh, my word. I can't imagine what that must feel like.
Oh, yeah. It's not. It's when you're at court. I can't. Did I talk about this the other time? I can't remember. The feeling you get. So if you imagine you're these investigators now, there's going to be that they are not going to have a life. They're going to be working almost 24/7. They're going to be going home, sleeping, getting up, coming straight back to work. And they're going to put so much of themselves into the investigation. And at the moment, you have to cling on to that hope that some are still alive.
Yes.
And so the first thing is, can they get back alive? That's going to be their, although they know that they're going to be potentially investigating a murder, their real focus would be, and the thing that everybody wants to see is Summer come back. So could you imagine being that investigator, or like the Chloe case, being the investigator and getting a child back? I mean, you cannot even begin to imagine what that would be like, can you?
Oh my word. It would be amazing. I mean, you must have had quite a few moments like that in your career.
Yeah, you
Solving
do.
cases.
And
Wow.
that's why you do it. That's why you do it. And that's why you put up with all the negative sides and the impact it has on your life. And so I think I mentioned this as well. So most detectives end up getting divorced because it's such an intense job and it takes over your life. And you're willing to do that because you know that, well, first off, you know you're doing a good thing. But when you get to that, it's at court, really. When you're at court and that verdict comes back of guilty, and everything you've been through to get to that stage is just like, it just makes it all worth it.
Goodness.
Yeah, and the pickled liver you get from drinking too much. It was like everything, all negative sides of being a detective. You kind of
Pickled
forget.
liver.
You forget them when you've got that verdict to court. It's amazing.
Goodness. They just say, just subscribe to Murder Academy. Good job, guys. Good job. Go over there. Wow. Okay. They say this case will go on until the Summer mystery is solved. Oh man. God bless Summer. We praise for her return.
Yeah,
That would just be
unfortunately, it could be one of those cases that just never gets. It could just be years and years. You just don't know. Or tomorrow we could wake up and she's been found somewhere. You just really don't know.
would be amazing. Oh my goodness. Wow. And then if that happens, if they find her somewhere tomorrow, then we can look backwards. The hypothesizing in hindsight, right?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. And I've not. This is my first time really doing this. I'm quite enjoying it.
Yeah.
Feels like I can be a detective again.
Right. And it's very nice hearing all your thoughts and your experience, especially, I mean, I think 83 or 84% of my audience is American. So they love having you on here as well to hear the Scotland Yard perspective. I mean, it's very, very interesting. Even though that FBI lady that I had, Gisela K, she was saying she watched your interview as well. And she likes it because she's like, we do the same work, but it's also different. It's like same, but slightly different. And so interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
To hear all about that. Okay. Just seeing if there's any questions going on here. Don't want it to go back to the parents. Oh my word. If they find her alive, would people want it to go back to the parents? That's another whole thing, isn't it? Goodness. That would be interesting. All right. Okay. And so they said we did subscribe, Lieutenant Peter Pronzo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else with scenario 4? Scenario 1, 2, 3, and 4. We went over for anyone. Right?
Lost track, if I'm honest. It's
Yeah.
just so much. I could probably come out with loads more. So one of our jobs. So what we would do, we would get called to a lot of incidents. They might not necessarily be murder. They could be really serious assaults where someone is going to potentially die, or it could be murders. One of my jobs was advising local police officers on how to carry out investigations. And so I would do it verbally first, and then I'd go back and write out an advice sheet. And you could literally spend hours writing these things up, and you'd just be telling them all the different lines of inquiry that they should be following up. So it's a bit similar to that carrying out this process.
Okay. Sorry, I'm laughing at this one. My cat won't stop tapping me and rubbing on my phone. She likes it. I'm glad. My cat was just about to say hi to you guys, but then he left the room again. Okay. So my goodness, my brain is like, it's like, wow, that was intense. I like it a lot. I'm sure we could talk so much more about this case and many others, which I hope you will weigh in on as well.
Yeah, definitely.
They say that house is not suitable for children. Yes. Those brothers are no longer there either. Cadaver dogs did not alert in the house. She didn't die on the stairs.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think cadaver dogs wouldn't necessarily pick up on cleaned up blood. I don't think so. It would be more the luminol and checking for the signs of any sort of clear up would eliminate that.
I did not really know that. So cadaver. So if someone were to murder someone in the house and then they cleaned up, bleach and all, then the cadaver dogs can't pick up on that.
Potentially not. I mean, they're trained in the UK. I'm assuming it's similar in the States. They train them on pig carcasses. They bury them and they let them find them. Yeah.
My word.
Hmm.
Pig carcasses. I didn't know that. So now, just to summarize, from Steven Keogh's book. What is your book called again?
Murder Investigation
Yes.
Team: How Scotland Yard Really Catches Killers.
It's the How Scotland Yard Really Catches Killers. That one I'm always like, how? Yeah, really catches killers. So that one, in chapter 3, part 1, there's this chapter called Investigative Thinking. And it goes like this, like, where do we begin? Investigative strategies, developing hypotheses, investigative decision-making, and understanding motive. So I find that all very interesting. I'm busy reading the book as well. I mean, now we went over kind of part 2 of chapter 3, which is family liaison, media appeals, trace, interview, and eliminate, criminal profiling, and how to make sense of all the information.
Sorry, one of the things I did want to say is I keep seeing in the news that dogs picked up the scent of Summer.
Yeah.
Dogs can't pick up a particular person's scent. They're picking up a human. So that may or may not be true. So, for instance, if the brothers or the mum or anyone else had gone out looking for Summer and they'd gone down that particular route, when the dog then comes, they're picking up whoever that person was. They're not necessarily picking up Summer. I've seen it a few times saying the dog picked up Summer's scent. They didn't. They picked up a scent of a person. That's as much as you can say about that.
Wow, that's interesting, because earlier there was a question of if Summer's mother, for instance, picked her up and went down there, would they then pick up Summer? But as you say, they're picking up a person's scent.
They're picking up a human scent. They're not picking up Summer.
Okay, that's interesting as well. I mean, that is actually kind of common sense. But I think we imagine and we look in the media, they're like, oh, they picked up Summer's scent. So then you just think that.
I think that comes from, so you see it on TV and films, like they'll rub a bit of someone's clothing under a dog and they say, go find. And I think that's probably where it comes from. But the dogs are trained to pick up human scent, not a particular person.
Oh, my word. Because that's also what we've all thought with the Brian Laundrie thing in the swamp, that the dogs were like sniffing his stuff and then going out there looking for him. And they're like, why didn't they find him? Oh, my word. Well, they were looking for human scent.
Yeah,
I mean, just is
unless Americans got different dogs to us, I don't know. But that's in the UK certainly. Had dogs, because we used to have it all the time. So if we had a murder scene and we thought a suspect had gone off in a certain direction, if that was a busy area where loads of people had been, then it would be pointless sending a dog there, because they're just going to pick up the last people that were there. They're not going to pick up the person. You can't direct them to a particular person.
That's so hectic here. They say, so why do they require items to get the scent? That is interesting, because even with a Chris Watts case, they asked him, well, can we take your daughter's shoes or clothes? It was like on the police report because they needed their particular scent. That's interesting.
Unless like the dogs in America are trained differently to ours. that does not happen in the UK.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know whether there's some sort of different dog system over there. Like I don't know. But certainly in the UK,
I'm gonna try to find out. Well, Lieutenant Peter Pronzo, do you know anything about the cadaver dogs in America? Can they pick up certain scents? My goodness.
That wouldn't be a cadaver dog. That would be a different type of dog. So dogs are trained in different to find.
That's true as well. That's true as well.
So the cadaver dog might well be. So dogs can pick up. So a cadaver dog here could also be the dog that can trace people. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a cadaver dog to find a person. It could just be a normal trained dog to find people.
Goodness. And it's just interesting. I'm just thinking, sorry, now it's other case. I'm just thinking of like Brian Laundrie in the swamp, and they're like, we sent in cadaver dogs, which is not looking for him alive. They were looking for him dead then, if that's what they said. And just looking for human remains, not necessarily him alive, because they said cadaver dogs. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Side note, the next hour will be about now. Yeah, and in the next hour, everyone. Wow, okay, wait, I'm missing out on some questions here. Let's just see. Oh, they're just saying that's so interesting. Dogs on a scene will pick up. Dogs can be trained to pick up scent. Okay, if it's what it's trained for. Okay. Well, we never know. Tracking dogs. I think he means cadaver versus tracking. Interesting. Goodness, I learned so much today. My word. Especially knowing that, like, we only have like 10% of the info, guys. We're really hypothesizing. We wish it was like 50, maybe 80, but it's like 10% at most. Okay, with dog videos. All right. Anything else you can add for now? I mean, you'll be back.
No, I think I've kind of lost track of where I was, to be honest. But we've covered an awful lot, haven't we?
Yes. So closing thoughts for tonight on the Summer Wells case. I mean, it's difficult to have a closing thought, but of all the things we discussed, any closing thoughts? I can't really tell you to like pick a direction, hypothesize which one's most probable, unless you want to.
Yeah.
But any
So
closing
as I
thoughts?
say, that if you're going to go on statistics, the most
Yes.
likely is somebody known to the family. That's the most likely.
Yeah.
But people do get snatched and by random people. So again, I'll come back to what the sheriff was saying, where you leave everything on the table, and you have to, because anything at the moment, anything is as likely as anything. So yeah, you have to keep that open mind.
Yes. Imagine if it really is someone completely unknown to the family who, wow, that would be quite the hypothesis, right? Sitting in the woods, luring her out and snatching, like, wow, and getting away.
The layout of the house, though, doesn't lend itself to that, does it?
Not really, no.
Where it is up on that hill, and
really not, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Imagine if it is that. Oh my word, we'd be so shocked. But it really is very unlikely.
But also as well, the fact you've got such a tight window for somebody to a sexual predator to have been passing at that time.
Yes.
To have caught Summer on her own in that very small window, to have taken her away without anybody knowing in the household, it seems less likely, doesn't it?
Yes, it definitely does. Goodness, it might be someone unknown but connected to their friends. No, that's true as well. So still someone known to the family. Known but unknown. Yeah. Could it be a transaction gone wrong?
In terms of what, like a drug?
Possibly like a drug one, yeah.
Yeah, but again, so when we form hypotheses, where we don't have a lot of information, we keep them broad. So if it's a transaction, as in a drug transaction, that would be someone known to the family. So it would come under that. Who has the family been in contact with? And that's why we go back to phones. So that's why. If you think about all the scenarios that could have happened, you could end up getting yourself lost. So that's why you have to have it broad. And then as you get more information, your hypotheses can become more specific, and that's comes later on.
Yes.
As you, I mean, I did I see they got like 1,000 tips or something like that. So they'll be having to go through all of those, sort of work out what is a load of rubbish, what is actually useful. And some of that information may be steering what's going on in the background.
Yes. Gosh, they say the window on the basement door is a one-way mirror, so no one could see in. Wow. My goodness. What a strange property as well. Well, okay, so to close for this evening, we've done overtime like every time, everyone. Overtime every time. Steven will be back to weigh in maybe on more on this case or some other cases. You just never know where crime goes, right? My goodness. So where can people find you if they don't know anything about you yet? If they're just tuned in now, where can they find you besides in the description box? All the links are there. But
I'm calling it Murder Academy. So my web address is murderacademy.com. I've got my Murder Academy YouTube, and on my website I've got links into all my social media, like
yes,
Twitter.
you do.
I'm going to make a confession here. I'm going to make myself sound really stupid. I haven't really worked out Instagram yet. I don't know what I'm doing on it. I'm gonna have to have some lessons from my daughter or something. Tell her how to use Instagram.
I'm going to look. What are you doing on there? Let's see.
I haven't done anything on there. I don't know what to do.
Oh, you need to make some posts. I see. You are on Instagram. I'm going to follow you too. Let's go, guys. There's 6 followers on Instagram, Murder Academy.
You're not going to get much out of it because I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, if you just make, like your thumbnails that you make, you could make those into pictures to put on there to promote your episodes.
Oh, okay. All
Things
right.
like that.
Maybe we could have a chat later and you can.
Yeah, we will do that. Also, do you ever do like
generation? You can put words in. You can't put words in, can you?
You can put words in the caption.
Oh,
it's a very visual. It's like sharing photos and videos, but then you put words in the caption. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm just showing myself up here as I'm a bit of an idiot. Sorry.
Oh no! It's all good. Also, do you ever do like a book giveaway, like for a viewer? You know what I mean? Like I could do like a lucky draw at some point. We don't have to do it now. If you want to do it now, we can. That one person could win a copy of your book because I know you sent me one electronically, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know if you want to do that. Do you want to do it now or next time?
No, we can do it now. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I've got that cool giveaway tool, so we could do a draw. Just to finish off the show with some excitement, right? Lots of excitement. Ooh, okay, let me just close this. Hold on. StreamYard. This is what I use.com/giveaway. Where is it? There we go. Okay. What should they type in? #Murder Academy. How about that? So let's go Summer Wells. So #Murder Academy. Start collecting comments. Here we go. Okay, so everyone, if you type in, I'm going to type it in here. Well, let's hope. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to win. I'm typing it in. I'm the first one to enter. #Murder Academy. If you type it in like this, you'll go into the draw. We're only going to take 3 minutes. Okay. We'll chat and so on for 3 minutes. At exactly the 1 hour 30 mark, I'm going to do the draw. Then they'll have to get in contact with you, which means they have to do some investigation, find your website and your contact details.
I just saw Barbara on there. Barbara's already got a copy.
Barbara has entered the competition. She wants another one. Me too. Barbara, it's you and me. Yes. Okay, everyone. Thank you. #Murder Academy. It is a brilliant book. I would highly recommend it. And if you do win it, please do also go, once you finished it, onto Amazon and leave a review. Reviews are very important when a book has just come out.
Yeah, that would be really helpful because I published it myself, so I've got no publishing company behind me or anything. So reviews are really helpful.
Right. Okay. So let's just close this here. I'm just going to do this so that I can share my screen. Yes, we want this one. Okay. Right. Okay. So we've still got 2 minutes. They say, oh, I have a copy. Redraw. No, it's fine. Don't worry. Some of the Grizzlies got their copies going on. Okay, so wait, while we wait for another 2 minutes, man, I don't know how to wrap this up because I just learned so much. You've made my brain just, I don't know how I'm going to sleep tonight. I'll be like scenario 1, 2, 3, or going through all the scenarios, just going wild. My goodness, how do you switch your brain off once you get onto a investigation?
No, sometimes I couldn't. I did some of my best detective work in bed. I'd be laying there at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd wake up and I'd think, why don't we try this? And I'd go into work the next morning, and I think people might have thought I was a bit of a lunatic. I'd go in the morning, right, with all these brand new ideas I thought of overnight.
Oh man, you're like, oh yes, well, that's how I think true crimers might have that in common with you. I think we all sit there like, oh my word. I mean, sometimes we dream it. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night like, oh, I didn't think of that. Could scribble this down and talk about it. Wow. Okay, they say great question. If you guys have questions in the meantime, we've got another 45 seconds until we draw. There's 67 entries and there's 375 of you here. So #Murder Academy, type it in just like this to enter the draw to win Steven Keogh's book. Type A brains, exactly. Would you say you're a type A personality or no?
I don't know what that is, if I'm honest. Sorry.
Type A.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Some people use it as like you're such a type A. So it's, I don't know. I just think of drill sergeant when I hear it, but it's I'm a type A. So me, Lieutenant Peter Pranzo, outgoing, ambitious, rigidly organized, highly status conscious, impatient, anxious, proactive, concerned with time management, punctual as hell.
No, that doesn't sound like me.
Okay. Okay. Maybe you're British type A, little more chilled. Right. Okay, you guys are all entering. So here we go. Here we go. Are you ready, everyone? We're going to do the draw. One lucky person is going to win a copy of Steven's book.
Oh, this is posh.
Yeah, it's quite fun, right? Mm-hmm. Leanne Edwards, congratulations. Does Leanne have one?
Leanne Edwards.
I'm like, does Leanne have one? Okay, congratulations. And thank you to Lacey for the $9.99 super sticker. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who entered. So Leanne, if you can get in touch, how will they get in touch with you? I know it's on your website, but let them know.
Yeah, if you go to my website, there's an email and info@murderacademy.com. You can email me there.
So, Leanne, if you contact info@murderacademy.com, then you can get your book copy organized. They'll say, congrats, Leanne. Awesome. Okay. No, not blood types, personality types. But I am A+ as well. Wow.
Oh, I'm O. I'm an O on blood types.
Are you positive or negative?
O positive. O positive.
Okay. Is that royal? Isn't it what they say, the royal blood? O negative. That's what they say. The queen, right? O negative. I don't know.
Does she? I don't know. I don't.
Yeah. She's got an O blood type.
Does she?
Yeah. My husband as well. Okay. They say how to purchase. I like that. How to purchase.
Yeah. So if you go onto my website as well, so I know some people don't like Amazon, but if you go onto my front page of my website, it's buy the book, and it will take you to all the different online and bookshops that you can buy it from.
Yes, I can show them like this. So if you go here and you say buy the book,
yeah. If you scroll down a little bit, there's no on the other one. If you go
at the homepage,
back to the front page, and scroll down just a little bit, click on that one.
Buy now. Here we go.
Buy now, and then it'll take you to
all ebook print. Oh, there we go. Very nice. That's how you do it. And you can get whichever you've got ebook and print, so they can get whichever format they want. Very nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. I mean, the audience loved it. I can tell. Thank you so much to the audience for being here too, and all the mods. And we look forward to having you back again.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And if you, so my book, it really is everything I've just talked about. That's what the book is. It's not one of these. I talk about the cases I was involved in, but it's in order to relate it to certain parts of investigation. So if you like that investigative type of mindset, that's what the book is about. So you should enjoy it. Yes,
I'm sure true crimers will love it. I'm loving the book. You guys will. They say I'll be getting a copy. Great show. Thank you, everyone. And of course, I'm slightly tired now, so I don't know if I'm going to do a highlights one right now, but I've got a second channel for highlights, and I'll do that tomorrow. Highlights of this whole episode, because I'm also going to have to think about how to narrow down the highlights. We learned so much. There were so many, right? So let's just say always a fabulous guest. Okay, so I'm going to say goodbye now, guys, and I will see you back tomorrow, and I'll let you know as soon as you'll see it. Just set the reminders for when Steven's back or other guests or what we're doing on the show. And remember to go to Murder Academy and subscribe there as well, because there's some cool videos. When's your next video coming out?
Yeah, I kind of got caught up with some stuff this week, so it'll be next. It'll be next week now. I'm daddy daycare tomorrow. I've got my daughter tomorrow, so
okay, not tomorrow, but if you haven't checked out the channel yet, there's already 7 videos for you to check out and absorb, and then there'll be some new ones next week. So, and I'll be back probably tomorrow. So thank you so much, and see you again soon.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Bye.